Hello everyone and welcome to my B&B Fan Club channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Luna had joined Forrester 2 years ago as a bright-eyed intern with greater goals than the small apartment she shared with her mother, Poppy. She'd grown up listening to her mother's stories about a world where beauty and ability could rewrite your destiny. Poppy had also been a dreamer, but her dreams had faded into the background of regret. Luna was determined to be different. She'd fought her way into the fashion industry, not via connections, but through sheer determination, with her sketches catching the attention of Ridge Forrester himself. Her designs, like her, were bold but delicate, earning her a position in a world that seemed both exciting and cruel. But now, standing on this rooftop, Luna felt the weight of every decision, mistake, and moment that had brought her to this point. The news broke that morning with a headline that read, "Lisa Yamada confirms. She's leaving the bold and the beautiful. Luna's tragic fate revealed." The words seemed like a betrayal, as if her entire life had been reduced to a plot twist for public consumption. She had not meant it to end this way, but the truth was that she had long since lost control of her story. It began with Finn. Dr. John Finnegan, with his gentle gaze and calm hands, had been her rock in the storm of Forrester drama. They'd met by chance at a company event, where Luna, feeling anxious and out of place among the elite, had spilled champagne on his suit. He'd shrugged it off with a beguiling smile, and they'd spent the night talking about everything but fashion, her aspirations of producing sustainable clothing, his work saving lives at the hospital, their mutual love of late-night jazz and horrible reality TV. Finn was married to Steffi Forrester, the untouchable queen of Forrester Creations, but their marriage had been strained for months due to secrets and betrayals that Luna only partially understood. She had not intended to fall for him. She had not intended to become the other lady. Their connection began quietly, with stolen looks in the design studio and late-night texts discussing anything and everything. Luna told herself it was innocent, that she was simply a friend comforting a man drowning in his own life. However, the heart does not listen to reason. After a long day at Forrester, they ended up at a dive bar on the outskirts of town, away from the prying eyes of the Forrester family. The neon lights cast shadows on Finn's face as he shared his fears. His marriage was dissolving, his son was caught in the crossfire, and he had no idea how to solve it. Luna listened, her fingers brushing against his, and the world transformed. They kissed, and it felt like both the start and the finish. For weeks they lived in a fragile bubble, meeting in secret and finding refuge from the craziness of their lives. Luna was aware that she was doing something wrong, yet she could not stop herself. Finn made her feel recognized, not as an ambitious intern or the daughter of a struggling single mother, but as herself, Luna, with all her flaws, goals, and quiet strength. She promised herself they'd find a way, that love could change the rules. But love, she discovered, was no match for the Forrester society, where devotion was valued and betrayal was a death sentence. Steffi found out. Of course she did. Steffi Forrester was a force of nature, with razor-sharp intuition. It wasn't a spectacular confrontation, with no screaming or broken glass. Steffi had just stepped into Luna's office one afternoon, locked the door and stated, "I know." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were filled with rage, causing Luna's knees to buckle. "Do you think you are special?" Steffi inquired, her words stinging like a sword. "You're simply another female who believed she could take what was mine. You are nothing to him, Luna. And you're nothing here." Luna attempted to explain, claiming that it wasn't about snatching Finn, and that she hadn't meant to hurt anyone. But Steffi did not want explanations. She craved blood. The next day, gossip swept around Forrester Creations like wildfire. Luna was a homewrecker, a schemer, and a nobody who had overstepped her boundaries. Her once praised creations had become derivative or uninspired. Colleagues who had once grinned at her had now looked away. Ridge, her mentor, gazed at her with disappointment, as if she had also deceived him. Finn tried to support her, but his own life was falling. Steffi filed for divorce, and the fight over their son, Hayes, became heated. Finn was caught between his feelings for Luna and his sorrow for his family, his face etched with pain that mirrored hers. "I can't do this to them," he told her that night, his voice breaking. "I can't be the man who destroys everything." Luna wanted to cry and beg him to pick her, but she saw the truth in his eyes. He loved her, but not enough to destroy his life for her. She let him go, and her heart broke as she watched him walk away. The fallout was relentless. Poppy, who had placed her expectations on Luna's achievement, was saddened. "I thought you were smarter than this," she replied, her voice full of disdain. "You had the opportunity to be something, Luna, and you squandered it for a man." The words stung because they were true. Luna had always taken pleasure in her independence and drive, but love had blinded her to the repercussions. She had lost Finn, her reputation, and her position at Forrester. Then came the final blow. Luna noticed the soreness while having a typical day at the studio. A vague discomfort in her side, persistent but not concerning. She initially ignored it, blaming stress, a lack of sleep, and the weight of her deteriorating life. But the ache intensified, intense and unyielding, until she couldn't ignore it any longer. The doctor's face was sad as he gave the bad news. A rare aggressive form of cancer that had already spread. The prognosis was bleak, months, perhaps a year. Luna sat in the antiseptic room, the doctor's words fading into a drone, her thoughts repeating the events that had led her here. Was this her punishment? For loving too passionately, for wanting too much? She told no one at first, including Poppy. She went through the motions at Forrester, her patterns becoming darker and more introspective, as if her soul was pouring into the fabric. She drew clothes that resembled mourning, dresses that spoke of loss. Her colleagues observed the change but did not inquire. They had already written her off. Only Hope Logan, who had always been kind to Luna, realized something was wrong. "You don't seem like yourself," Hope commented one day, her voice soft. Luna wanted to confess and unburden herself, but the words would not come. She smiled faintly and claimed she was all right. The truth came out by mistake. A medical report left on her desk and discovered by an inquisitive intern spread like rumor throughout Forrester. Luna was no longer just the homewrecker. She was the tragic figure, the girl whose life had ended. The pity was worse than the scorn. People who had previously disregarded her now expressed fake sympathy, avoiding her gaze. Steffi, to her credit, softened, but it was too late to reconcile. Luna did not want pity. She wanted her life back. She chose to leave Forrester on her own terms. She couldn't stay in a town that had ripped her apart and spit her out, where every corner reminded her of Finn, Steffi, and the hopes she'd lost. She met Ridge in his office, her hands quivering as she handed him her resignation. "I need to find myself again," she stated, her voice calm despite the tears in her eyes. Ridge nodded, his face inscrutable. "You're talented, Luna," he stated. "Don't let this define you." But it had already. Leaving Los Angeles was difficult. Poppy asked her to stay and fight the cancer alongside her, but Luna needed to do it alone. She packed a single suitcase and booked a one-way ticket to a small coastal town in Oregon that she'd seen in a magazine, complete with cliffs that plunged into the sea and skies that went forever. She wanted to spend her final days somewhere quiet, where she could hear her own thoughts and draw without the weight of expectation. The village was as lovely as she'd imagined, with streets lined with worn cottages and cafes smelling of coffee and salt air. Luna rented a small house on the brink of a cliff, with windows overlooking the Pacific. She spent her days exploring the beach, gathering shells and sketching designs she would never see realized. The pain was relentless now, barely relieved by medication, but she refused to let it define her. She composed letters to Finn, Steffi, and Poppy about her regrets, love and hopes, but never sent them. She forgives Finn for choosing his family. She forgiven Steffi for her rage. She forgave herself for assuming she could have everything. Luna sat on her veranda one evening as the sun began to set. She had a sketchpad in her lap. She drew her final design, a flowing gown the color of the sea with embroidery that sparkled like stars. She would leave a piece of her spirit behind for no one but everyone. The pain was severe that night, and her breathing was shallow, but she felt strangely calm. She made mistakes, but she also loved fiercely and dreamed big. She had lived. The next morning, a neighbor discovered her on the porch with her sketchpad open, and the gown's lines unfinished. The news reached Los Angeles a few days later, causing a subtle tremor in the pandemonium of Forrester creations. The blogs described it as terrible, a young life cut short. Finn wept as he heard. his heart bleeding for the woman he had loved and lost. Steffi looked out her office window at the water, wishing she had been kinder. Poppy clutched Luna's final letter, tears soaking the page. In the years that followed, a local artist uncovered Luna's final design and gave it to Forrester. Ridge had it made, a monument to the girl who shone brightly but faded too quickly. The gown premiered at a charity dinner, and its beauty silenced the audience. It was called Luna's Light, a name that seemed appropriate, but no one could explain why. For those who knew her, it served as a reminder of her spirit, mistakes, and heart. It was plenty for Luna no matter where she was. Luna remained in the empty dressing room long after everyone else had gone home. The faint hum of the studio lights hummed above her, constant and frigid, like the echo of an old memory that refused to vanish. On the counter in front of her was the script for tomorrow's show, pages marred with neon sticky notes, coffee stains, and a faint impression of her thumbprint where she had hesitated too long on one line. This was supposed to be her final script. Her ending. The book she never wanted to read. Outside, the murmur of laughing faded down the hallway as the crew wrapped up, called goodnights, and made weekend arrangements that no longer included her. The walls had always felt alive here, brimming with gossip, lights, and love stories that lived only between takes. But tonight all were silent, and she realized that, for the first time since joining the show, she was completely alone. She traced her finger across her character's name at the top of the page. Luna Nozawa. The woman who had loved too profoundly, trusted too foolishly, and was about to lose everything tomorrow. It was humorous in a terrible sense, that Lisa and Luna were both departing. One was fiction. One wasn't. But the heartbreak remained the same. The decision had not been easy. It had arrived in whispers. Tiredness first, then the weight of expectation, and last loneliness, which snuck in between her own words. She had spent years molding Luna, bringing her to life, making her laugh, cry, and love in ways Lisa had never dared to. Luna had served as a mirror and an escape for her, hiding her actual nature behind a camera lens. But the story was coming to an end, and she had always been scared of endings. When the producers informed her that Luna would die, she smiled. She described it as lyrical, full circle, and even beautiful. They had carefully written Luna's final moments. A rain-soaked scenario, a desperate confession, and a gentle goodbye. Lisa had nodded like everything was okay, pretending she didn't feel like she was losing a part of herself that she'd never get back. Now the script rested in front of her like a letter from a previous life. She turned to the last page. It was not long. Luna's final words were modest, subtle, and heartbreakingly genuine. Lisa spoke them aloud into the empty room. "Tell him I tried." The quiet seemed like a cut. She closed the script, breathed, and pressed her forehead against her hands. Deep down, she worried if Luna's death would be similar to hers. Quiet, uncelebrated it. Something that happened without anybody noticing until it was over. She recalled the admirers' letters and notes. People adored Luna for her tenderness, her tenacity, and the way she maintained hope even when life took everything from her. Lisa had no idea what it meant to be loved by strangers until this concert. She feared she'd never feel it again. A tap on the door shocked her. She wiped her eyes swiftly and straightened up. Ryan, one of the camera operators, was older, courteous, and had a soothing voice. He appeared to know when not to ask too much. "Hey," he spoke softly. "Are you heading out?" "Yes," she lied. "In a minute." He hesitated before nodding. "We will miss you, Lisa." "It won't be the same." She faked a smile. "Thank you." After he departed, she rose and stared in the mirror. The bright lamps gave her face a pallid glow, making every freckle and shadow obvious. She scarcely recognized herself. Not the actress who walked red carpets, not the girl who auditioned years ago, not even Luna. Just a woman standing on the verge of something she couldn't describe. She packed her belongings methodically, including the mug with her initials, the Polaroids affixed to the mirror, and the half-used lipstick in the same shade Luna used in her debut scene. Her phone buzzed once on the counter, indicating a message from her mother. "Are you okay?" Lisa looked at the words for a long time. She typed, deleted, then typed again. "Yes, Mom. Just exhausted." She pressed send. The next morning the set was alive again, with grips shouting, lights being adjusted, and costume racks squeaking down the hall. Everyone treated her gently, Perhaps unnecessarily so. That was how people acted when they realized you were about to disappear. They gave her overly bright grins and lavish compliments. It was like going to your own funeral in slow motion. They told her the scene was easy. One take. The rain machine activates on cue. Simply fall when he catches you, stare into his eyes, speak the words, and vanish. She nodded, listening but not truly hearing. When the director ordered action, it was as if the world shrank to a single breath. Luna hurried through the rain, her hair sticking to her cheeks and her hands quivering. She cried his name, tears mixed with the water, and then stumbled. The car's headlights flashed once, too bright, too close, and she crashed to the ground. Except for the steady patter of rain, there was complete silence. Lisa felt the cold, damp ground beneath her, and for a tiny minute she stopped acting. She was Luna. She felt the heartache, the regret, and the love that she never expressed. She mumbled the line, her voice nearly breaking. "Tell him. I tried." The world vanished around her. The director called cut, but she did not move immediately. Someone shouted her name. She opened her eyes, blinking through tears and rain, and the crew cheered. It was over. She smiled weakly and sat up. The makeup artist wrapped her in a towel, and everyone applauded her. Someone held her too closely, but everything felt far away. She was still lying there, somewhere in the rain, bidding goodbye to everything she had created. Later, when the set had been cleared, she returned to the dressing room one last time. Her belongings were already gone. The space appeared smaller and more empty, with only a mirror, a chair, and the faint scent of hairspray. She switched off the light and walked out, not looking back. In the weeks that followed, Luna's death was broadcast. Fans took to social media to express their grief. Lisa watched in quiet as hashtags trended and tributes flooded in. Some claimed they couldn't believe she was gone. Others asked the writers to bring her back. Someone even wrote that Luna was the sole reason they watched. She deserved better. Lisa wanted to respond, to let them know she understood. That Luna deserved more than she received. That's what they all did. Instead, she hung up her phone and went for a stroll. Autumn had arrived earlier that year. The air was cool, and the trees lining the park were dropping gold and red leaves in slow spirals. Lisa walked aimlessly, hands in her pockets, till she arrived near the pond where she used to practice lines before auditions. The bench was still there, with carved initials on the back, the paint worn from years of rain. She sat down and looked at the flowing water. It was strange, she thought, how life went on even when you didn't. People would continue to love Luna, rewatching her moments and quoting her remarks, even after she, the lady behind her, had vanished into the calm anonymity of everyday life. Perhaps this is the price of living someone else's life for too long. You forget how to live your own. A young child rushed by her, chasing a paper boat across the river. His unadulterated laughter resonated in the cool air. Lisa smiled slightly. It had been a long time since she laughed like that. She wondered if she'd do it again. As the sun set, the sky turned orange and violet. Lisa tightened her coat, feeling the wind bite her cheeks. Something inside her loosened, perhaps anguish, or show thanks. It was difficult to tell them apart. She remembered Luna one last time. The girl who had loved too hard, suffered too much, and persisted in her faith. The girl who had taught her how to feel deeply, even when it was painful. Perhaps the aim of it all was not fame, narrative, or praise, but the reminder that being brave enough to love the world despite its cruelty was worth everything. The next day, she packed a little luggage and drove north without a destination in mind. She drove past villages she had never seen before, names she didn't recognize, and faces she would forget before morning. The farther she traveled, the lighter she felt. Like Luna's spirit had finally let go. By the time she arrived to the coast, the sun had set. She parked alongside the cliffs and climbed out, facing the endless horizon. The sea was black and active, with waves breaking on the cliffs below. She closed her eyes and listened as the wind rushed past her ears. That sound reminded her of Luna's voice. Not her scripted one, not the words prepared specifically for her, but something softer. A whisper. "It's okay. You can leave now." Lisa grinned through tears. For the first time in years, she did not feel as if she was leaving anything behind. She felt like she was finally getting back to herself. She waited there until the stars appeared, each flickering weakly against the black sky. She reflected on the people who had believed in her, the stories she had told, and the lives she had unknowingly influenced. And she promised herself that she would uncover new stories. Not scripted ones but real ones. Ones in which she could live. When she eventually returned to her car, she noticed her reflection in the window. Her hair was windblown, and her eyes were sleepy but alert. She took a deep breath, started the engine and drove away, no longer running from the past but toward something new. Months later, she returned to the city in silence. There are no interviews or hype. The world has already gone on. But, in subtle ways, she had not been forgotten. Letters continued to arrive from fans, relayed through her previous agency, telling her how much Luna meant to them and what she meant to them. Lisa kept each one. A young woman stated in a letter that Luna's story saved her life. She reminded me that love never ceases, even when everything else does. Lisa read it again, then neatly folded it and placed it in her journal. That night she opened a fresh sheet and began writing. Not for someone else but for herself. Her personal narrative. She wrote about the hush after applause, the never-ending goodbyes, and the fragile beauty of remembering. She wrote until dawn and painted the window gold. And for the first time in a long time she felt calm. Years later, when individuals mentioned Luna Nozawa, they did it lightly, as if they were sharing a secret with old acquaintances. They remembered her tears, courage, and final words. Tell him that I tried. They had no idea Lisa had tried to rediscover herself, forgive and live. And perhaps the most tragic, beautiful aspect of all was that the divide between the lady and her character had become so blurred that both found redemption in the same story. Some endings are written by others. We wrote some of them ourselves. Lisa's story, like Luna's, was not truly about death. It was about quietly letting go. About standing in the rain one more time and saying farewell with a trembling grin, knowing that somewhere, someone is still watching, feeling, and believing. As she closed her journal and watched the morning light flood across her desk, she concluded that this was plenty.